Wednesday, January 8th. We're going to launch right into it. Do we have any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions to the agenda. I just note that Patty did catch a correction under our individual consideration items. First reading set for public hearing on January 22nd. We had originally posted that as 2019, which would have been quite impossible. So we made that correction.
Great, thank you. Thanks for catching that, Patty. We're going to go to public comment. Do we have anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move it to commissioner comment. Seeing any commissioners here? We have a commissioner.
I want to welcome everybody to the year 2020. It just seems so surreal to say this is 2020. I remember sitting here when we hit 2000, and we were all thinking that sounded surreal. So welcome everyone to this new year. Be safe. We do have some storms coming up. So again, I request people being cautious and careful out there. Streets are slippery, so please use caution crossing the streets. People are, excuse me, falling down, catching colds, and healing from colds. So anyway, welcome again, and we're ready to start a new year.
Anyone else? Steve?
The Food Bank of the Rockies has had a difficult time with where to deliver food to people because of the weather and one thing and the other. But for tomorrow, they're going to be, this is Thursday, January 9th. Food Bank of the Rockies will be at the Roaring Fork Apartments next to Stubby's in Basalt is where they will be doing the food delivery tomorrow. And we are working, our Health and Human Services Department is working on trying to get all the food deliveries inside at Lift Up from the various organizations that do food for people.
Oh, good. Thanks for that. Oh, great. Can I just add something real quick? I forgot. It's Winter School. This is Winter School Week. So everybody, you can pull it up on the ACRA website, the schedule of events. Tomorrow starts off with the Winter School Helen Clanderwood Awards Luncheon, and then things will be ready to roll for the weekend. And then soon after that, I think, is Gay Ski Week. There'll be a men's health something at the bottom, big tent at the bottom of Aspen Mountain. And then we slide right into X Games. So we got a couple weeks coming up.
I've got Kelly in the queue here. Go ahead.
I'm sort of lacking a voice, so I'll probably reserve my comments for when my voice comes back. But I just want to note, for me, it's been a year since I've been sworn into this office. And I've just been really proud to serve with this board and some of the incredible achievements that we've had over the last year, which I'll kind of detail in a future meeting when I can talk. But just want to thank my colleagues and just thank the people of Pitkin County. I hope I've served you well. I hope I am accessible to you and always will be. And just, extend all of my best regards to everybody and, my open access to you. And I look forward to the year ahead and just the things that we have on our plate and goals that we have set forth. So thank you.
And we hope you feel better.
Thank you for getting that.
Kelly, it's been a pleasure having you here for this year. You've done a really awesome job as a first-year commissioner.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
One thing I forgot, and Patty reminded me, this Sunday is the ski extravaganza at the Aspen Nordic Center at the Aspen Golf Course. And anyone who is a never ever or has hardly ever cross-country skied could get a beginning lesson from yours truly, who I get lassoed into that every year or so.
With the beginners.
Doing the beginners, which I've been teaching beginner skiers ever since I was a school teacher many years ago. And so that's kind of all day Sunday there. The lessons are all free. Ski rentals cost, I think, just $10 for a couple of hours on this Sunday only.
All right. Thanks, Steve. All right. We're going to move into consent items. We've got minutes of the regular meeting of December 18th and special meeting of December 10th.
I will move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
A second. Any other comment on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have a resolution appointing commissioner chair and vice chair, commissioner representatives to various boards, committees, and authorities. And John, you're on. John without the H.
Yeah, so the resolution has been discussed in work session, and this is a resolution appointing both the chair and vice chair, and then designating commissioners to serve on different committees or commissions or with outside organizations to represent the county in those forums. So that could be CCI, it could be number of other entities that are listed throughout there. So the resolution is developed based on direction that was given in work session.
I just had a question. So the Board of Health, since I'm going to be the new alternate with Greg, we're going to approve that next, even though we're approving it now. Is that okay? I don't think it really matters. Because it's on here. Or it should be on here.
Citizen board
Board
appointment.
of Health.
As a citizen board appointment.
Yeah, so we're-
Probably, yeah, we should probably make it part of this resolution in the future.
Well, we've got so in the future we can do it all at one time. Okay. And then there's nothing we've forgotten, because there's so many things, trying to go through and remember everything and what we all do. I think the public needs to know we stay really busy around the year. So, did we forget anything?
Maybe.
Probably.
It's a lot
When
on.
we remember, we'll bring it back.
We'll bring it back.
No, we did go through and double check.
Okay.
Okay, any other comment on that? Do we have a motion on this yet? Are we ready for?
I'd make a motion to approve, and a comment is, as we're switching gavels, now Steve will take over as a chair. I just want to thank you, Greg, for this past year. Being the chair, it requires a little more diligence, a little more work and time, so thank you for your service as the chair for this past year. And Steve, we look forward to your chairmanship this year, and let's have a smooth year.
Smooth year. But wait a minute, now, who gets the gavel now? I'm not finished.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm giving this
We're
up
going
just
to be
yet.
finished in about 2 seconds.
I was thinking that was
I
farther
think
down
we
the
should
agenda.
arm
Dang.
wrestle though.
But Greg, when we pass the gavel, I'm going to pass on to you the duty of reminding Steve to open and close public hearings.
Right, that's what I learned after about 11 months, I think.
Well, we're still working on it.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Patty, I'll have you note that I marked all the public hearings on the agenda already.
well, if I could, before I cede this chair, I did want to say a
Yes,
couple
thank you,
things.
Greg.
So you need a second, I'll second the motion.
Oh, we have a
George
second. He's
needs-
going to second it. He's
Yeah.
seconding the motion, but now comment. Any other comments before I go into my
I wanna
lengthy?
Thank you, though. You did a great job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So I just wanted to say, I think that we need some pomp and circumstance, and we need some sort of ceremony here. So I've taken great pains and at length came up with the perfect item here, and this is a talking stick that I acquired at the thrift shop only 10 minutes ago. And when I hand this over to Steve, it will be official that he's the chair.
A weapon.
And I think that we should all use a talking stick, don't you?
That looks like a weapon.
It's actually a cake
should come
server.
with pie.
It'll come in very handy
With
when,
Kelly
when
here, it's
Kelly is
perfect.
making cakes. So this is a multi-purpose tool.
That's a good idea.
And now, if I could, I just wanted to say a couple things. And as we make this transition, Kelly reminded me yesterday that maybe this is a good time to make a short reflection. Not something I'm inclined to do, but here I am. Let me just see if I can find it before it gets
I'm
away.
going to miss our Friday meetings, Greg.
Well, we can have other meetings. I'll come. So here, I'm going to read this so we can get through it quickly. And I'm going to, this could be very long. And I certainly, as you know, my motto is brevity is the soul of wit. And I'm not going to violate that now. But as chair of the board this past year, I've had the honor to lead the board in discussions which culminated in a lot of progress, as Kelly alluded. I thought you were going to take away my thunder there. We're so lucky and grateful to have a smart, thorough, effective staff to work with. And my hat is off to everyone who does the heavy lifting when it comes down to
getting the work done, while we take the credit, but we also get the slings and arrows, so maybe that's a good thing. I've also tried to keep in mind that the time we've spent together and the time invested by the community in our many issues is time we'll never get back. And being one of those people who always uses annoying phrases, I'll repeat it once again. Brevity is the soul of wit. But on that note, I have a little more to say. My only regret at this point is that I didn't conduct the meetings in iambic pentameter. If we'd insisted on that, things could have gone along much briefer. And so looking back on this year, the partnerships that we've engaged in, we've got many with many municipalities and other entities like Holy Cross, and we're actually getting some amazing things done. And it's great that we've got these partnerships. We have more work to do, but we also have, I think we're off to a great start to be looking at valley-wide solutions. Going down the list, in the last year, we've preserved and acquired affordable housing. We've come up with some innovative and important strategic acquisitions, thanks to the thoughtful people that work with us. We've initiated some important child care progress. Parental leave was a big deal. I can't believe how many people come up and congratulate me and then thank you for bringing that forward, Kelly. So we're working on water resources still, and having John Ely and his staff doing the hard work on that on our benefit to keep water flowing west from the Continental Divide is a huge challenge. With mental health and health care, we have a board of health that's actually doing important work now. We have a public health department that's active and engaged. We've promoted mental health first aid across the community. It's in the schools. Law enforcement has taken it up. We initiated a PACT program for ride-alongs that has already shown success and helped actually perhaps save lives already. We've got a huge airport process, public process going, and happily we have a lot of people engaged in that, and that's going to be a robust discussion. I'm so grateful Steve will be chairing that. Regarding transportation,
I'll be sick that day.
we're working, Kelly.
Right.
Regarding the transportation, just so much has happened with RAFTA, our partnership with RAFTA, the new electric buses. People are so excited about that, the expanded services, the election that brought us, a RAFTA 2040. Broadband, a huge issue we're working on still. Great progress and some really interesting ideas coming forward. I think Holy Cross is meeting this week to talk about perhaps partnering with us. Land use, I was trying to think of all the land use issues we've done in the last year. Highland Bavarian Lodge, I think that was a win. the Toklot thing, it's a win. Sunfire Ranch, the conservation easements, and the huge things we're doing with open space and others we've come forward to do and enlighten things about preserving important landscapes. Conservation easements, I'd be great to tally up the number of acres that we've preserved through conservation easement, and I don't even have that. Energy resilience, huge topic. The PV farm, another controversial issue, but I think there's a lot of support for it. And microgrids in conversation, more energy. I'm going to move on to climate. Just trying to make a list last night for a meeting I had with RMI. We've declared a countywide climate emergency as initiated by local school kids. And I'm so grateful. I didn't even speak at that meeting because it came forward from the rest of the board and the kids, and we got it done. And now we're following up on it. We're implementing building energy codes, land use codes with net zero energy goals, carbon offset programs for travelers. We're in partnership with Habitat for Humanity and NREL and others, BOCC and the schools, net zero affordable housing. I mentioned the electric buses. We have a solar-powered ambulance building that is net positive, probably for 9 months out of the year. We've got other climate, important resilience and climate initiatives coming down the pike, and it's all done with municipal and utility and transit agency partners. We're doing some forward thinking on tobacco and nicotine in sync with what's happening at the federal level right now, but I think it's really wise that we decided to move forward on that. We've got a parental leave that is, once again, it seems to be in sync with what's happening federally, but being proactive. I want to thank Kelly again for that. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for giving me the privilege of chairing this year. It's been an amazing ride. There's much left to do, but I have to express my gratitude for the thoughtful, conscientious fellow board members. And what I'm most proud of is that we have helped conduct the affairs of the county in the most effective, efficient, and compassionate way I could think of. And I think we've set an example for others. We're not going to shy away from the robust conversations, as I mentioned. They'll be coming. I'm going to leave you with my favorite Shakespeare quote, and it's, "Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York, and all the clouds that lured upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Richard III." Now I cede the talking stick, robe, and crown to Steve. Take my place.
Well, wait, we
So-
need to keep that for our board retreat.
Oh, don't
You
we
just
have to-
summarized
You're
our-
still the chairman.
Oh, I'm still the
If
chair.
you have the floor for a minute.
I'll give you
Greg, in
the floor.
our
We haven't voted on that
appreciation
either, right?
for all of your year of hard work as the chairman, we have a little gift for you, and it's essential that you open this up now on the television camera.
I just hope that you all put more thought into this gift than I did for Steve. Thank you.
We went to the thrift store yesterday.
You went to the thrift store yesterday. Oh, what's this gonna be? Some swag, maybe? A solar-powered hat. Oh, cool. This is gonna be, I will be wearing this at some point. When the sun shines. I suppose you want me to try it on, huh? 2 solar-powered hats. How do you turn it on?
That's
sure
charged
how you
battery.
And this one has, this can't be solar powered because it has headlamps.
Solar powered.
Oh, it is, really? Oh, you're right. See? In case you all wonder
Well,
if I'm,
that's a cool hat.
if it appears that I'm stumbling around in the dark, I have help now.
But where are the keys to the
Metaphor.
red Tesla?
Yes, where is my Tesla?
that comes
we
after the
failed on
meeting.
this. Yeah, the keys, I'm sure they're in there. Well, thank you very much. Is this where we have to vote and then we switch chairs?
We do have to vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay. All right, thank you. I will now move over and swap seats
We're
with
gonna
Steve.
trade chairs here.
So I think, Greg, we're just gonna rotate this way and move all the way down.
So John,
Oh, you
Kelly's
want,
John-
you want,
move
Kelly,
over
do you want to
too.
move too? Oh, you're moving closer. You want to
John
get closer to
Ely?
the seat of power. I
Kelly's
appreciate
biggest
No.
concern is the cashew nuts.
I know, I'm a little disappointed to move away from my snack buddy over here.
More disappointed in you.
Yeah.
So we can't keep Kelly too far away from
So
the
you're coming
cakes.
all right, so I can sit next to the
Okay.
brain trust.
This could serve as our gavel.
We gave Shelley a gavel one year, and I don't recommend it again, but
I always jump when the chairman will hit the gavel. It's
especially on our new
surprising.
table.
Oh, look, my chair. But wait, can I have that?
Oh, take whatever you need.
Thank you. Congratulations, Steve. Good luck.
Okay, well, this is my second
I'll be,
go-around
I'll
as
be
chairman.
available
so-
if you ever need advice or if I need to.
Okay,
I'll help.
and Greg, I really like your long speech, so I hope you got all of your speech out of you for the whole upcoming year at this point.
Brevity is the soul of wit, as I mentioned earlier.
We're gonna remind you of that.
So moving on with our meeting, the next item is approval of the 2020,
No,
wait a
it's
minute, no, it's the resolution appointing citizen board members. This is where we make you official, Patty.
So this came out of a revision of the bylaws of the Board of Public Health to have an alternate for the electeds, and so I am very proud to be serving with Greg. Greg will be the representative, and I will be the alternate. And I thank the board for their support in my doing this. I'm excited. I've got the retreat on my calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve Patty as the Board of Health alternate.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, just for the public's benefit, so you'll know that the city of Aspen and town of Snowmass Village also will be appointing alternates. So there will be more warm bodies available for the Board of Health meetings in case someone can't be there, then it provides a better, more robust discussion. So any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye?
Thank you.
Okay, so Thank you for volunteering for that, Patty. We all used to be the Board of Health, and then we changed it to have more citizens on there who are specialists in health-related areas. So then, next up is the 2020 ambulance licenses, and Phyllis Matthijs and Richard Cornelius are here to present this. Okay, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Phyllis Matthijs, Deputy County Manager. This is an annual occurrence where you get to license the ambulance services that operate in the county as well as permit the individual vehicles. So with that, it's a pretty regular occurrence, but this year there is a new service that is in, and I'll let Richard explain that.
Sure. So I just wanted to be here to answer any questions you have related to Event Medical Solutions Unlimited LLC. I'll refer to them as EMS Unlimited. They've requested an annual ALS license. We, as a Pickens County MTAC, have made a recommendation that you put some restrictions and conditions on that related to their inter-facility transport services and their special events. So as you guys know, typically when you issue the ALS service license, that is for 911, interfacility transport, and of course special event. But we are only recommending an ALS license and then the associated vehicle permits for the interfacility transport services and special event. And I'm happy to review those specific restrictions and conditions if you would like.
I have a question. So this means when we have a pro bike race, for example, that comes through town, we've had to do a last-minute approval of licensing so they can bring their ambulances, which are kept following their whole event all the way through the Rocky Mountains. So now this will automatically cover them if it's under Event Medical Solutions Unlimited?
Correct, yeah. So in the past, I've come to you guys requesting a temporary ALS license and permits. That was for Stadium Medical, specific to, I believe, Ride the Rockies. This service is actually based in Rifle, Colorado. They're currently providing interfacility transport services for Yampa Valley Medical Center, which is a UC Health affiliated hospital over in Steamboat Springs. They also now have the contract for interfacility transport services for Valley View Hospital in Glenwood Springs. So they approached us and offered their services. They certainly don't have an intention to take over the interfacility transport services, but they said, hey, if you find yourself in a situation where you need another resource, we're happy to help, and we would like to go through the proper channels. So should we request their services, they've gone through the licensure and permit process.
So for example, the day we opened the ambulance, the new barn ambulance facility, there were 2 transports that happened back to back at the same time, actually, to Denver. So that could be a backup in that instance, that they could take one of those transports and leave one of our ambulances at home.
Exactly, yeah. So as you know, Aspen Ambulance District is currently providing the interfacility transport services. They have one crew on call 24/7 that can handle those transports. If they have a more emergent, immediate need, they can pull their 911 crew. And so the thought process is they already have a resource committed, and particularly if it's like a non-emergent request, instead of pulling the 911 ambulance out of service, we could potentially, and when I say we, I mean the hospital requesting the transport, could utilize Event Medical Solutions Unlimited. So it's
They'd be
just,
already
it's another alternative. We don't necessarily see that happening on a regular basis. If you guys read actually through the recommended restrictions and conditions, it's basically going to say transfer within boundaries with authority having jurisdiction prior authorization. So what that means is the Aspen Ambulance District, because they have the AHJ for the IFT service, would approve that. So they would have knowledge of that request.
So this is a really good idea because in case of emergency, you don't really have time to come back and find the board members to have us do any approvals. So I think having it on the books and seeing if we don't need it, that's good. If we do need it, it's even better that we have it ready to go.
Yeah. And if I could just quickly touch on the special event. As you guys are probably aware, there's a lot of special events within Pickens County, and those place a service demand on the local agencies, and it's becoming more and more challenging to meet those service demands. And so this is a service that specializes in providing special event coverage. And so kind of the thought process, because Event Medical Solutions Unlimited came to the Pickens County MTAC meeting back in October, and we had all the public safety agencies represented, and they're another option. So what we can do is, if we're unavailable to staff the special event, they can staff the special event. If they find a need to transport in an emergent situation, they already have the license and the permits, so they're good to go. And as the recommended restriction and condition says, you know, for those specific patients, they don't necessarily need the prior authorization, and we're going to have knowledge that they're staffing those events anyway.
Okay. Richard, are the ambulances that they use for the event medical solutions, are they equipped the same as our ambulances?
Yeah, they are. So the state, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, has a state required minimum equipment list. And so when we go through the annual ambulance inspections, the list that we use is the state required minimum equipment list. So both of their ambulances were inspected actually by me, and I go through that line item by line item to ensure they have the state required equipment. In addition to that, because they were a new service, we did require them to go to a licensed mechanic for the maintenance inspection as well. So they've gone through that, and the equipment that they carry, they meet the state required minimum equipment. It's possible that an Aspen Ambulance District or Roaring Fork Fire Rescue Authority ambulance may have additional items, but in terms of state required minimum equipment, they meet those, yes.
Can I?
Okay. Yeah, Patty.
So say Ruggerfest, and the Aspen Ambulance District usually covers that. They would get first choice whether or not they could cover it or whether they needed to bring in this, because
Yep.
there's some revenue that comes from that. I don't want to take revenue out of local mouths, but so that would be their choice.
Yeah, so the agency, the AHJ, basically has a first right of refusal. So speaking for Roaring Fork Fire Rescue Authority, we have several special events that we are unable to cover due to staffing. And so what we do is we outsource that. But they first come to us, and then we say, I'm sorry, we don't have the resources available. So this is a perfect option.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly.
So if I could just understand the distinction with the exclusions in their license is that they would not provide 911 response. And so any 911 ambulance response would still be provided by one of our public districts, either Roaring Fork Rescue or the Aspen Ambulance District.
Correct, yeah. So within Pitkin County, there's basically 3 agencies. So Aspen Ambulance District, Roaring Fork Fire Rescue Authority, and then Carbondale Rural Fire Protection District, which obviously heads up to Redstone. They're covering a part of Gunnison County as well. Yeah, so obviously if there's a mutual aid situation, then that's a different set of circumstances. But they don't have a desire to provide 911 transport services. They understand that the local resources currently providing those 911 transport services desire to continue to provide those services. They just want to be another asset, and that's specific to the interfacility transport and then the special event.
Great.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion for approval of these licenses.
I'll make a motion approving an ordinance adopting Title VI. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page already. The right one. Pardon me. I'll make a motion adopting, approving 2020 ambulance service licenses and ambulance vehicle permits. I need more than that.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the ambulance licenses, or is there any further discussion?
I have a question. That one approval approves both of these issues. Okay, just want to make sure we're covering both.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks.
Aye.
Nice to see you.
Opposed?
Happy New
Nice
Year.
to see you.
Thank you
for your
very
time.
much.
Appreciate it.
Have another good year. Hopefully, we
Okay.
don't have too
See you
many
next year.
bad accidents this year.
Nice and quiet. Knock on wood.
Okay, moving to individual consideration items. We have an ordinance adopting Title VI, Section 41 of the Pitkin County Code to establish a comprehensive tobacco prohibition for minors. And this is the first reading right now. It would be set for public hearing on January 22nd. So we have lots of staff people here. I'm not sure who's. carrying this one. Risa and Karen, are you going to discuss this?
Jeanette.
And Dr. Lovett, I think.
I think she had to leave. She's
Okay.
I knew there was one. Can I have
she's
that
been
back?
sick for the past couple of days. My name is Risa Turetsky. I'm the Pitkin County Public Health Promotion Program Administrator.
And I'm Karen Kenneman, Public Health Director.
Thank you for taking the time to hear this today. I think we started this process back in July, talking about raising the age to 21 for all tobacco products in the county. And so we're really grateful to all of you for spending all this time with us to really get it right and make sure that we are putting in place best practice policies. We were asked to bring forward an ordinance for raising the minimum legal sales age to 21. From 18, also known as Tobacco 21, and we're here today to ask for your approval. The key specifications of this ordinance are to, as I said, raise the minimum legal sales age in unincorporated Pitkin County, which will match the municipalities within the county border boundaries, to ensure retailer understanding and compliance through education and routine checks. We set the fee for each violation, which is a sale to a minor, at $1,000. And anyone caught distributing tobacco products to minors, i.e. a street sale, will be held accountable. I'm sure you all heard the news that we've had a national increase in the minimum legal sales age from 18 to 21, which I think in some ways is a really big win for public health because it really helps to create that safety zone for kids who are less likely to get addicted to nicotine. Public health really still feels that it's important that we make this ordinance a reality in this county because it allows us the opportunity for local enforcement and protects us in case that federal policy changes at all.
Oh, perfect.
So I have a question.
Okay, Patty?
First of all, I think the ordinance is very clear, and I want to thank John Ely because I've talked to him about some of the issues within it. It's very clear, it's very black and white. I think it's very easy to understand, and I appreciate that. I'm hoping that over this next year, we don't have a lot of frequency to use it in enforcement on minors as far as education and cessation programs. But I think at the end of the year, I would ask that you bring it back to us and say this is what we saw of your violations. Or if you're seeing a uptick in violations in 3 months or 6 months, please don't hesitate. We ask that you not wait the year, bring it back, and we can look at what else we might need to be doing. I think it's critical to set this, and I totally agree with you on having local control. As we know, we never know what happens at the federal level, and this also gives us our own jurisdictional issues with how we're going to manage this within our own county. So I really appreciate that, and I'm going to be fully supportive. Thank you.
Ford?
Yeah, this has really been part of a long process that we started probably about a year ago when we first discussed the idea in terms of instituting a tobacco tax. That went before the electorate this past fall and was passed with a wide majority. And as another way to try to discourage youth from utilizing tobacco products. And of course, those tax dollars will go towards education that will fall right in line with this ordinance in terms of raising the age from 18 to 21. So it really falls right into place with that. So I really support that. And then I think the final part of this process will be, hopefully will come before us shortly in an ordinance or resolution where we prohibit all flavored tobacco products. Is that an ordinance or would that be a resolution?
Ultimately, it would be an ordinance, but there is actually state legislation that is proposed and hopefully will go through and be adopted this spring or this winter.
Yeah, but it's just thanks. But it's also good, as Patty stated, is to have local control because even on the national level, when we first saw the Trump administration supporting prohibiting all flavored products, he quickly fell back on that, probably from strong lobbying from tobacco lobbyists. to allow menthol. And I remember as a kid, if you were going to smoke cigarettes, it was a menthol cigarette that you would pick up. It wouldn't be a Camel. So once again, I think Trump's administration is falling short on that, as he does in many other things. So local control is good, and I look forward to this next step in terms of the process.
Kelly?
Thanks for all your hard work on this. Can you help clarify for me the ramifications for a retailer and a person at a retail operation are very clear. What happens with like a street to street sale? Because again, you know, one of the things we hear and we're concerned about is the overage individual selling to underage, and making this 21 makes that harder. We know high school students have less access to persons over 21 than persons over 18, so I think we'll make good headway there. But what's gonna, you know, what does that look like? Is there any change in this?
So Kelly, the prohibition that's contained in the code amendment that you are considering covers not only a sales transaction, but in a typical retail sense, but also a sales transaction or any other form of distribution, which could be a gift or some other transaction that doesn't involve say a monetary consideration. So anyone in the role of selling or distributing or giving or otherwise making available tobacco nicotine products to a minor would be culpable for the violation of the code.
And subject to the $1,000 fine.
Correct.
Older siblings, be warned.
Yeah.
Bridget knows buying cigarettes for.
So if somebody goes down to, say, Glenwood Springs or points farther west or elsewhere and brings back a case of cigarettes or nicotine products of some sort and starts selling them out of the back of their car, they're actually culpable for this. That's good to know, and we should make sure everyone realizes that. That was a new wrinkle I didn't understand. Also, I'd love to know what happens to the $1,000 fine. Where does that money go? That's my first question. Do we know where, is that going into our general fund, or is there a tobacco education program or something where that money ends up?
This particular ordinance does not segregate the funds, so the county can use it as part of general fund assets, but I believe that given the restrictions on the funds that are generated through the tobacco tax, that the desire of the board would probably be to combine any money from fines with tax revenues to be used for the same types of programs and resources that the tax is specifically directed.
Got it. And I'm anticipating it's going to be a very small amount of money. This isn't going to be a moneymaker for us, we hope, right? So maybe it's insignificant. The other thing I wanted to point out, because I've been watching this on social media and elsewhere, and the comments I'm seeing from a lot of people who are in favor of having free access to everything, where that we're taking away personal freedoms, and how could we do this, and we're not hurting anybody, it's a victimless crime, you hear all that. And so I just wanted to say, if I could, you've got a really nice short list of relevant statistics here. And I think the public should understand this and review this. We're saying 59% and 53% respectively of Aspen and Roaring Fork School District high school students have reported using or trying e-cigarettes, and 45 and 37% respectively in the last 30 days. 63% of Aspen high school kids say they have easy access to e-cigarettes. 63% of high school students younger than 18 who use tobacco products reported that they buy their products themselves from local brick and mortar stores. That's a shocker to me. That should be underlined. And then finally, the last thing, which is something I'm fond of saying, is that the cost of smoking for all of us is estimated at $650 per year per Colorado household. So yes, we're all paying for the public health consequences of tobacco use to the tune of $650 per family per year. Thanks.
Steve?
Patty?
Greg brought up a really good point about the fine. Do we need to make a decision on that, or do we need to talk with the enforcement agency, would be the sheriff's department that's actually issuing those, or can we just?
It doesn't relate to the sheriff's department or any other law enforcement officer or public health officer or employee. It relates essentially to the board itself. You can earmark it. You can drop it into a segregated fund. That the decision is available to you
At any time?
At any time.
Okay, I didn't know if we needed to do anything formal.
No.
The other question I have, since Greg got me on track on that, was in the agenda item summary under budgetary impact, it says there is a cost to education, enforcement, and compliance. Tobacco tax dollars could be a funding source for these activities. I would rather change that to will or would be, because I think that was our plan all along. It's not a matter of could. That's what our plan was, is to use the sales tax dollars to fund this program. Is that not where this board was going?
Sales tax dollars are limited specifically
Okay,
to
so
programs.
I want that
such as
could. I know it's just in the agenda item summary, but I want to just clarify that we're going to use the monies generated from the sales tax to fund this program. If we need to go above and beyond that, then we'll have that discussion at that time. Does that make sense? Okay.
So is there any change in the wording of the ordinance that would need to be made?
No, this was just in the agenda item summary.
Oh, I realize the wording you're seeing, but
I don't think it's in the ordinance.
No, it's in the AIS, so we'll amend that and bring it back.
Just so it's clear, so that we know it's clear and the public knows it's clear. That's the intent of the
oh
sales
yeah, we
tax.
could make those changes for the second reading on January 22nd. That would be good. And I would agree with making those changes. I think that would be an appropriate use. I would like to see that we don't collect any money from the $1,000 fines. But looking at the statistics, there are, having the people going like decoys going in and trying to buy tobacco products. There are always clerks who will sell to them, and so I anticipate there probably will be some businesses getting nabbed on this.
Yeah, we hope that when we do the educational component to this, we can really help front load that a little bit so that we see that reduction, so that we do have some work. And we'll be doing the education as well as the compliance through the public health department, so through environmental health, who has some expertise in regulatory authority. We'll be working with our retailers to help educate them and then support them in supporting the ordinance.
We're buying over here.
Greg?
If we're putting up signage in the various establishments, can we actually have a notice to anyone who's buying or contemplating buying tobacco products for others that they could be liable for this fine?
I don't know how they manage that with alcohol, but we should kind of see what they do
Just
there.
wondering if that would, it'd be a great disincentive, because if somebody asked you to go, buy them you don't think about it, or maybe you wouldn't until you saw this sign, a bulletin near the sales desk. Just a thought. Don't know if it's possible, but wanted to propose it.
Something that we haven't required in the ordinance that we could potentially do is either requiring or suggesting signage, period, because we don't have a license. So when we didn't put in the license, we didn't put in a requirement for signage. So I don't know if that's something that the BOCC would like to add in. I don't know if that's possible that we require signage.
Well, we certainly can request it.
Okay.
George?
Yeah, John, regarding alcohol, is that signage required by the state? And then, so if the state does pass this similar new requirement, then would the state then require signages as well?
The new legislation does not touch and concern signage specifically. However, it broadens the authority of local jurisdictions to engage in the kind of activity that would allow for signage or other regulation on the sales transaction that would take place. In other words, the product being located only behind a counter or something like that. The proposed state legislation also significantly increases penalties and does make it more apparent that if you are an over 21 individual and you're transacting a sale through a retailer to pass it on to somebody who's under 21, then you're going to be hit with a fairly significant penalty. The $1,000 penalty is simply our limit under state law as it is today.
So that, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, Patty.
So, and we're not gonna be flexible with that 1,000. It's 1,000. We're not gonna say, well, it's your first time, you get 500.
Right.
It's 1,000. Are we gonna do any kind of warning with the education, as Pickens County does a lot with like dog leashing, and we do a warning education the first time around? Have we talked about that as far as enforcement, or are we just gonna hit them with it right from the get-go?
Our plan is to go out and do education so that all the retailers are aware, and then also suggest a free online evidence-based education program that they can use for all their clerks. After that, there really isn't any reason that anyone should be selling to a minor. What we are seeing is that, like, when the state does their enforcement, they have a policy where they do one warning within 12 months, and then the second time, so they never get back. The person never follows through, and it's probably just relevant that we go ahead with.
I think if we're reaching out first with education and touching all of those who need to be educated, as far as the retailers, I think we're good to go.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So this raising the age from 18 to 21 has a personal meaning for me. My father started smoking at the age of 18 back in the day when everybody smoked. It was a common thing. They gave out cigarettes to all the GIs in the Second World War at the same time my dad started smoking. So it was a common thing for people to smoke at that time. Well, he ended up dying from lung cancer many years later, and that was probably the beginning of it, because he smoked for, you become addicted to it, and then it's really hard to get off of that addiction. And so I really hope what we're doing in passing this ordinance is to help some young people keep from getting addicted to nicotine and prevent a not very nice passing many years later from lung cancer.
Yeah, my dad was preteen, 9 or 10, farm boy in Iowa, started smoking, died at age 62 of oat cell lung cancer. So yeah, it hits home. I think it hits home. It touches all of our lives these days, with an older family member and seeing any of the younger generation coming up. It's really hard for me to see young kids walking down the street smoking a cigarette or vaping. So I think we need to move forward on this and see where it takes us this year.
So I would entertain a motion here.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this ordinance on first reading, second reading set for January 22nd. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, ladies, for all
Thank
your
you
hard
very
work,
much.
and gentlemen, for your hard work.
Okay, next on the agenda is individual consideration item, second reading. This will be a public hearing. Ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners authorizing acquisition of Corame Loads 1 and 2. Dale, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Steve. I'm Dale Will, the acquisition manager or director for Pickens County Open Space. Let's see if I can get my map going on here. John, what's the secret button?
I think this would return.
When I was 10.
Oh.
You did?
And I snuck them into
Oh, there we go.
school.
Perfect. Thank you.
Your bones are busted.
Bear with me 1 minute. I'm surprised
Did you actually pluck half the cigarettes out of my parents?
The property that we're here to talk about are two adjacent mining claims, the Corame Loads 1 and 2. They're shown in the yellow outline on the map that we have up now. Just for some context, the creek you see running along the left side of this map is Castle Creek. Castle Creek Road is just above the creek. It's a little hard to see, but there's a black line. And this is a couple of mining claims that are now owned by Tom Barron. The open space program was looking at them before he got them. They had come out of a foreclosure situation, and he outbid us back in 2016. The reason this property is significant to the open space program, actually there's several. From a scenic perspective, this reach of Castle Creek doesn't have any structures that are visible from the road for a little section there. And this property is benefited by an approval for a large house that would be located right about where this little red line terminates here, but something that would be pretty visible from Castle Creek Road in a location that's otherwise not disturbed. You can see that it's an inholding in the National Forest, surrounded by National Forest. So protecting this property has the effect of protecting the adjacent public lands from the impact of that development. And in addition, Pitkin County has been busy nearby with the sterilization through the TDR program of this land up here that was or is owned by the Zurchers, and also our purchase a few years ago of the Sterling Cooper open space. So from a habitat perspective, the elimination of a development site here is maintaining the integrity of this whole area that can be managed as essentially as a unit of public land without any activities going on there except those that may be appropriate and permitted by either the Open Space Department or the Forest Service. In addition, when we bought the Sterling Cooper open space from Buzz Cooper, he was very anxious that this be a property that people would remember his late son Sterling by, and he had always wanted there to be a more usable trail to get to the open space, and the Cora Mayloads offers that now. There is an old grade of some kind of a mule path that runs all the way across the traverse along Castle Creek Valley there. It actually comes out in a physical way further up in Little Annie Basin, but the section between the Cora May and the Sterling Cooper open space is intact. It's fun to walk on. It's very easy. So the acquisition of this property also allows us to kind of connect this other open space into a little system here. We haven't had a lot of opportunity to work in the Castle Creek Valley, and this one we think merits your approval. The Open Space Board has unanimously recommended this. You all approved it on first reading. One little nuance in the ordinance that I hope is okay, I'll look to John Ely for that, but when I originally brought this to you, I was proposing to amend the 2019 budget to authorize this acquisition. I realized that the ordinance wouldn't be fully approved until 2020, so I made that switch in the final ordinance. I think that's a acceptable change from first reading. John's not interrupting me, so I think I'm good.
Nobody's grinning like way big over there.
So with that, I would ask that you approve this and turn it back over to Ryan Ely and I, and we'll get it done.
Patty?
I just want to thank Tom Behrens again for allowing us to move forward. I know this has been really important for Buzz Cooper in honor of Sterling, and I'm excited. I'm excited to walk it, and won't be for a while, but as soon as we can, I think. And then I know we're going to be looking at anything else that might be in that neighborhood to see what opportunities might be there. So thanks, Dale. Again, thanks for doing the job you do so well.
Thank you, Patty. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'll make the motion to approve the ordinance of the board authorizing acquisition of the Cora May loads 1 and 2.
Second.
Okay, further discussion?
Only to thank Tom Barron again for doing this.
So this is a public hearing. Is there any members of the public who wish to speak on this matter at this time? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for further discussion. I would echo what's been said already. We've looked at this a lot. I think it's a great addition to our system, and having a trail already in place that people will allow people presumably a place to park off of the road and to be able to walk to the Sterling Cooper open space is pretty awesome. Also, the fact that we're preventing a house from being built in an area that doesn't have houses really is beneficial for wildlife. Just the bigger of a space you can have that doesn't have a lot of human activity, it just makes it a much better place for wildlife in general.
Right.
So, is there any further discussion? I'll call a quick question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dale.
Dale.
Yep. Happy New Year.
Yep, you too. Next item is an emergency ordinance and resolution confirmatory reading. This emergency resolution was approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Board of County Commissioners of Pitkin County and the town of Snowmass Village provision of sales tax collection. And John, we have you for discussing this.
Steve, this is a public hearing and confirmatory reading for an emergency resolution that the board adopted at its last regular meeting of 2019. The purpose of the resolution is to establish an IGA for collection of sales tax proceeds concerning the recently adopted and approved tobacco sales tax, or tobacco and nicotine products sales tax. The reason it was brought to the board as an emergency resolution is to get it in place and effective prior to the beginning of the year when the tax goes into effect. The Home Rule Charter allows the board to take actions of an emergency nature, whether they're ordinances or resolutions, so that they become effective immediately as long as there is a confirmatory reading that is available for public comment to the board prior to the board's confirmation of its previous action. So there are no changes to the resolution that was approved by the board. This is simply for confirmation and entertaining of any public comment.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak about this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Any further questions about this? Kelly.
When will it be possible to get our first report on sales tax collection for
End of the month.
this? Thank you.
In fact, they'll be done monthly throughout the year.
Okay. Great,
I
thanks.
think there'll be 1 month in the rears, though.
Sure.
So,
This is what will garner.
That's true.
Yeah, I think it'll be the end of February.
For January.
so my question has to do with the logistics of the town of Snowmass Village collecting taxes from business establishments elsewhere in the county. Is it all done electronically, or does somebody have to go around physically contact the different businesses, or how does that work?
So Steve, we'll want to come back to you on that. I believe it is done electronically, but we'll confirm that. I don't think we have someone going around collecting cash, for example. But
I didn't presume that.
Yeah, but there'll be a reporting mechanism. I suspect that's done electronically. We'll have to confirm that through our finance department. They really did the negotiations on the logistics for us.
Okay. So, let's see, do we have a motion on this yet? I don't believe so.
I'll make a motion to approve, and I want to thank Snowmass for helping us out. It was great, since they're already set up to do this, that we were just able to roll into their process, and I appreciate that.
I can second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this emergency resolution. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Thank you, John, for doing this. Now we move to land use items. The first one is a resolution allocating 2019 rural area residential growth management quota system allotments for additional floor area. And we have Suzanne Wolf here from Community Development. Suzanne?
Thanks, Steve. Welcome. Nice to see you up there. The shift. I watched the shift earlier on the
Isn't there a sense
on the
of deep
screen.
regret?
It's just a change. You have to keep adapting, right?
Pushing it. Still waiting for those car keys.
So this is allocating growth management allotments for additional floor area for two properties, one up Snowmass Creek Road, one in Starwood. This was in front of you in December for forwarding of the P&Z scores. There have been no appeals. One question was asked at the last meeting, which was how much square footage is there existing on the property? So I did include that in the memo, but just to call it out, on the Snowmass Creek property, the Wilson Trust property, there's approximately 10,950 square feet of floor area. There's sort of multiple structures on the property now, so that's not all in one house at this time. But I think was a garage and, a couple of other outbuildings, so that's the 10,000. And then the Starwood property has approximately 6,000 square feet. So the additional is on top of that is existing. And I think that's about it. Both had met threshold for the scoring. And so we've recommended that you approve the resolution that's in front of you.
George?
Suzanne, I noticed that the commission accepted the scoring drafted and gave the applications the following scores by a vote of 3-1-1. Is that 3 in favor, 1 abstain, and 1 against?
Correct.
And so how did we don't see that in the minutes at all in terms of, I'm just curious how that conversation went and what were some of any of the issues that were presented?
I would say the abstention and the opposed vote were both based on, I think, just a general frustration with our growth management scoring system. I think would be the simple answer. We could delve deeper into that, but yeah, I think you're aware that you've seen a lot of these granting allotments within the last year and across the board. So the P&Z has seen a lot of scoring applications. And just, I think we're all struggling with, what is it we're trying to get out of the system, and are we getting that with this scoring? And so I think that's the short answer is just feeling that we're not getting something. If growth management is about getting something that goes above and beyond what code would require, that maybe that's not what our system is getting us. Getting us there.
Yeah, so just as a follow-up, I'm just curious, is that on one of the agenda items for the P&Z to be looking at this coming year?
I know there's talk, I think generally for you all as well as the P&Z, about growth management, TDRs. I think we were looking for, I think Cindy and Ellen will be looking for, kind of how we're going to look at that discussion, whether we, try and do some sort of start with P&Z, start with you all, start with something joint, again, to start thinking about that. But I think, yes, that is a topic that's definitely on the docket.
Great, thanks.
So I kind of have that same concern. And I've expressed this before, I don't really like the growth management system. I think maybe if we do keep it, I think there should maybe be different or more criteria looked at. Now, perhaps they are looked at, but I'm not totally familiar with the scoring system. For instance, both of these would allow building a bigger house. We're taking all these steps to have bigger houses be more energy efficient. Is the energy efficiency of their plan looked at all as part of the system for scoring the points?
That is not a scoring criteria. Once upon a time it was, and it was actually taken out when the building and energy codes were, when the energy code was coming more into play seeing that is sort of a code piece that we didn't have at the time. And we were seeing, people committing to low flow toilets kind of thing through growth management. Again, we really weren't getting, much out of that. So again, that was something that shifted at one point in time. It's not in the scoring now. So it is not. But yeah, I would say definitely these additional floor area applications are ones we particularly, struggle with, how to play that out.
So looking at some of the impacts of a larger house, one would be, is it compatible with the neighborhood in terms of the size of the houses? In this case, that subdivision with 8 houses, I think, are all approximately the same size right now. This one, I think, would then become the biggest house in that neighborhood, which probably then will inspire the others to want to expand their houses too, to keep up with the neighbors.
And that's a zoning discussion as well. That both of those areas allow 15,000 square feet. So this is just the mechanism to get them past, to accomplish that, to get up to, some larger floor area. But, that's.
Then a further question would be, are they going to be doing a demolition and building a whole new structure that's larger, or are they just doing an addition? And I don't know if that's looked at in the scoring system, because it would be a bigger impact on the community and on the landfill if they are doing a demolition project as part of their whole project.
I mean, in this case, both of these were adding on to the existing residences. I don't know, I guess I don't know enough detail in terms of how much of a remodel, but it's not a tear down existing and build, the new larger house. Both of them are adding on to what is existing. Mm-hmm. But that's not always, not always the case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Greg?
Just wondering when will this come back to us? For clearly there's more discussion to be had on the topic, and I really look forward to that when ComDev comes back to us to have that conversation. When do you anticipate, if you can? Is it on the calendar yet, or is it just?
It is not on the calendar yet.
Okay.
I think that's part of our retreat.
Well, maybe so.
I think that's part of the growth thing, and I think the issue, having done growth management scoring more than I would like to admit to, the reason we did pull the energy stuff out was because the code was matching what people could do. So that could be part of the discussion. Now that we're bumping the code up, do we want to bump up their requirements even further for bigger houses, having to do even more? I think that would be an appropriate discussion when that discussion comes back to us, and we can decide on that at the end of the month.
George?
What would happen if this did not get approved?
The Starwood property, Starwood is a designated TDR receiver site. So they could do exactly what they're asking for with the use of, they're asking for 3,000 square feet. So presumably that would be, 2 TDRs. And they would just go through site plan review. The Snowmass Creek property could also request to use TDRs. They would go through special review, so that would be the hearing officer review process to allow it to be designated a receiver site.
Yeah.
But that's a good question.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Just a thought.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Could they sue us? I mean, the GM kiosk. Right?
I'll
So I
flip
just
that one to
don't-
John.
Anybody can do it.
Right, of course, but
There is little.
25,000 square foot allocation that hasn't been used.
There's little discretion built into the code for this particular review item. So that is certainly a topic for discussion with the board.
I mean, that's what it feels like to me. It's a little bit of our hands are just tied without further policy change on this. But I don't know if that's true.
The other option is it comes back to us for rescoring. Would we deny with a rescoring? Would that be part of it, or can we just flat out deny? In the past, it's been a denial would be a rescoring and would come to our table to score. And I'm not sure we want to go there till we revise the whole scoring system.
And to generate that particular outcome, it would probably be more advisable for the board to take a look at the proceedings of the P&Z to see if there was an opinion of inappropriate scoring. Otherwise, you'd be repeating the same exercise.
Right.
The code.
Part of the discussion is.
The code is most definitely what the code is, as they say, and so the parameters and decision points would be the same for this board that were present for the P&Z. This board, of course, does have the ability to change the code.
Code it like you mean it.
Yeah.
George?
Yeah, I mean, we've been dancing around this issue now for several years, and it's come up multiple times every time we see one of these GMQS allotment requests comes, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. So I'm not going to support this. I think I need to make a statement to say we need to really look at this, see whether this is really addressing our needs, and if not, we need to change this, and we need to change this sooner than later instead of continuing to just to rubber stamp these. So I'm not going to support this.
I understand George's position on that. The concern for me is we're not to not support it because the system is failing. We think it's failed and we haven't addressed it. To me, isn't good solid grounds to deny. It's our problem, and we need to address the problem. So I'm going to support it with the caveat that before another one comes back to us, we will address the issue of GMQS scoring, or we just won't see it.
What about a moratorium?
On GMQS? Well, they come back on a biannual basis, so when's the next one?
January 15th is the first, I think, additional floor area
Well, we got a week.
deadline.
Well, you said you wanted to move it along, George. I'm trying.
So I'm of the same mind that George is, and I am troubled by the, kind of a split vote on the P&Z board. I really would like to know why, study these situations a little more closely and see what the discussion was at the P&Z, which we're not familiar with.
Well, I think the one person who's the no is generally the one person who's the no because he doesn't like the system. I think in the past we've had the one no vote. Whether one person abstained, I don't know. There must have been a conflict of interest.
It wasn't a conflict. It was as part of the vote. It was just an abstain, and I think it was just, again, more of a kind of in
So he didn't say no, he just abstained, but for the same reason the guy said no. Or the lady.
I would say they were both coming from a similar place, yes.
And that's because the system is not where the system should be. So we need to address it, and the sooner we do that, and George is right, and it's actually been a long time since we've been talking about this. So I think that needs to be, John Peacock, I'm looking at you, one of the top issues when we're looking at agenda for next year as far as growth.
Yeah, and I do think we need to get into the retreat so you guys can see the full scope of what's going on.
Yeah.
But to deny it now, I'm not sure what the recourse will be, and based on the fact the system is failing, is that the fault of the applicant? Or is it the fault of this board for not taking action to rectify concerns that we've had?
Yeah,
Is this an item that can be continued so we can review the minutes and the scoring sheet from P&Z?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll just to that point, we can provide the score sheets, the packets. We don't have minutes. You could, we'd have to provide the audio from the meeting for you to listen to.
So I was thinking the same thing, Kelly, that, I would feel more comfortable continuing it until we can listen to those tapes of the P&Z hearings so we understand their discussion on it and the scoring system. That would be an option if you wanted to make a motion to that effect. We could see what the rest of the board thinks.
Sure, I can move to continue.
To a date certain, or do we have to do to a date certain?
It's not noticed, so
It's not noticed, but given the fact that they're both live applications, it would probably serve us well to pick a date.
I would move it to our next meeting.
Yeah, our meeting agendas are pretty light.
And we've got time next week to review
So
anything. we want.
January 22nd?
I'd like to make sure we can get the P and Z, someone from P and Z in here. If we're going to call this up and really look at it, let's make sure we can be thorough in our examination, because I think I share the sentiments I've heard here.
We can't
I'd
just
like
bring
to-
one up, we'd have to bring them all up.
Well, maybe it's a spokesperson, maybe it's the chair, maybe it's all of them. But clearly we need to examine this. I have a lot of questions. We're talking about offsetting carbon everywhere. Everywhere I look, I'm thinking
It's
this.
not built into the scoring system.
It's not built in. Yeah. So why isn't it? Why aren't we asking everyone to be
Because we
offsetting their
need to
carbon?
change the code to build it in. And
Correct.
we aren't at that point
Exactly.
right now to do that.
So let's get the conversation started, and if we have to continue this for a week, doesn't seem like enough to me, but 2 weeks barely seems like enough.
So
We're not going to change the code in 2 weeks.
We're going to have the conversation.
We're going to have the
We're gonna s- yeah.
conversation at our retreat as to where we want to move forward, is my understanding.
So Suzanne, how soon could you get the audio available to all of us, and would we all make the commitment to listen to the audio between now and whenever the date certain we set?
I mean, I think it should just be available. That can be quick to get you the.
I just think we should have it available upstairs with the written. I'd like a copy myself of the written scoring, the scoring for all the different commissioners, and because I think that tells you a lot. Having had the experience of scoring myself, I think I can glean a lot of information as to what the discussion was. But, and we can surely invite P&Z to the meeting on the 22nd and ask them to contribute if they have things, but I think we need to open it up to all of them to come rather than just the one or two no's, which I'm sure we'll hear it's the process that we're concerned about. I think we all agree with that.
If I could, I'd like to say that I don't know how long the deliberations were for P&Z, but the cost of transcription, audio transcription, is pretty low right now. It's gone down so much that we might be able to transcribe the audio and read it rather than have to listen to it. I prefer that.
I'm looking at Mr. Peacock.
Might add time. I don't think we have a service contracted to do that right now, so it may actually be quicker to listen to the.
I can look into it too. I do that all the time, so I can share some to see if it would work.
Because this is an ongoing issue, and we're not going to get this resolved anytime soon, because it will require code changes and a lot of discussions. But if there is a concern about the process, we may consider doing a moratorium on GMQS, so we don't have to deal with this in the next one to go around. And people still have the option to utilize TDRs. It's not going to restrict them from additional building as long as that's currently in the code. There still is another pass, but otherwise this conversation is just going to continue until we're able to revisit the entire system.
I don't disagree with that. I think that might be a wise choice, except for the fact we have live applications that if it's next week, they've already submitted and they would not be subject to a moratorium.
Anything new coming in.
Just new.
Right. I mean, there are several that are in play currently that are scheduled, but that would stop any
I'm
that
looking
that
for-
and that's the first deadline again for additional floor area is January 15th. After that, our next deadlines aren't until summer. But
It would depend how the board wants to structure a moratorium.
Well, we'd have to enact it like tomorrow or next week if it's the 15th is the deadline. That's next week, right?
That's true.
So, I don't know. I don't know how to deal with that and not create greater problems than if we were just to hear this next course out and then enact a moratorium for the future.
I think that, the ones that are in the works right now we'll be looking at them. We would have the choice of continuing them, but maybe you could provide the kind of the scoring sheets and all of that to us ahead of time with the regular packet. So, maybe there'd be enough information for the upcoming ones that we could go ahead and make a decision right then.
if the board wants to have this discussion on Tuesday, we can schedule something then.
Yeah.
So what do we do in the case of now? Continue it till the 22nd, see where we decide on the Tuesday?
I believe that's the motion.
And then we can continue it again on the
And
22nd.
What that would allow us to do is review what the P and Z decided and see if we disagree with how they.
Or if we're
applied
comfortable moving it
scoring
forward.
criteria on this specific application. It may not result in any different outcome.
And on the 22nd, we can always continue it again if we're still not comfortable.
So where does that leave with the idea of a moratorium for any future?
My suggestion would be to discuss it next week.
Next week, okay, I was just.
Yeah,
So
and
we'll
I
have
agree
that
with that.
discussion next week and have staff input and, because I think that's important, because we know there's, even with this, we'll see the way P&Z has scored, and we've had, concerns about the scoring system in the past, but the scoring system is what it is. And unless we are able to change that, P&Z is just sort of checking the boxes, right? Whether we agree or not, and same with them, they have the same dilemma that we have. There's a scoring system, and if it meets those scoring criteria, then it passes. So they're in the same position that we are at. And I think the only way to resolve this, rather than continue this conversation, is to discuss this next week and consider a moratorium, so we have time to really revisit this whole issue.
And George, I see that in line with the support we've given to your idea to look at house size. This ultimately gets to some of that.
So it is unlikely that we'll have any materials, prepared for that. It's going to be time set aside for discussion.
On Tuesday.
Okay.
Correct.
But we will have the materials available to us.
Yeah,
for
the
case
audio
of scoring.
recordings and the scoring sheets, those are things we can produce, but to provide a memo or analysis or recommendations.
Can we put the audio online?
It is.
Is it already?
I don't,
It's just,
Grassroots?
No, grassroots doesn't cover P&Z.
but there's, in our records, there's
Is
the
it?
audio recordings.
I'll have to find it. If somebody could send us a link to it, that'd be great.
that would be great, but if not, we'll have to figure something else out. I'm not the techno person, but, sometimes I come
I'm
up
on
with these
it.
great ideas.
It's there.
And they work, actually.
So we're looking at two actions here. One will be the decision on the vote on the continuing this to January 22nd. And the second, on Tuesday, we'll take up a discussion on doing a moratorium at our work session next week.
Well, we'll take up a discussion on how we're going to move forward.
It might be a discussion of a moratorium or of
I know, but when you
amending,
put that word out there, we might have
starting to
45
look at
applications
amendments
run
to
in.
the land use code or however we decide to proceed on
I agree,
Tuesday.
that's the discussion, whether we
Yeah.
should put a moratorium on or not, and the public should know, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll take up that on Tuesday. We don't have to decide exactly on what we're doing on Tuesday right now.
we
So
have a-
Greg, did you second the motion?
I think I did.
I think you did. So,
Did he, Jeanette?
We need to amend it?
Let me look here. I just have Kelly making the motion. I
No,
may have missed
I'll
yours.
second it, and we mentioned the continuing to the 22nd.
Correct.
okay, it's been moved and
Good idea.
seconded to continue this resolution allocating the GMQS allotment for floor area until January 22nd. Is there any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you. Thanks, Suzanne.
thank you, Suzanne.
So on the next item, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'm going to just step out, but I'm not going to step far
okay,
We'll call you.
because I have some open discussion.
Would you get a one
okay. Are you going out this door or
No,
out
I'm
that
going out
door?
that one because if I go out that door too far, I can't get back.
Okay.
Does anybody else want water, coffee, tea, go out now?
A sandwich?
Cold beer, glass of wine, chocolate?
So the next item, land use public hearing, is an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners conditionally rezoning certain real property on Richmond Ridge owned by the United States and the Aspen Skiing Company from agricultural residential 10 from think this is a typo here, 10-acre and rural and remote zone districts to ski recreation zone district, and amending the zoning map to reflect this change. This, as a second reading, was continued from October 10th, and it is said here that it would be continued to a date to be decided. This is a land use public hearing, and the public hearing is open. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make comments on this matter? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing for the day. And Suzanne, can you explain or discuss this? What date are we looking at continuing until?
The date we're looking at is April 8th, to push it out another several months. We just met with SKICO representatives on Monday afternoon to discuss a little bit, sort of still trying to look at, what would be next steps in a process moving forward, and we don't necessarily know the answer to that yet. So still trying to work that out. So for now, just want to continue this and see by that next date, April date, if we have any additional information at that point in terms of what a process is going to look like, mostly. I don't know if John has anything to add to that.
Except that the motion to continue should include the item as described in the agenda, as well as the associated mountain area master plan that would be contingent upon the rezoning that was also continued 3 months ago or so. I can't remember the exact date, as well as the pending motion that was on the table and all other proceedings, which would include the public hearing.
Okay.
I will make that motion as John Ely has
With the wording.
expounded upon to April 8th, 2020.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to continue to April 8th. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, ski company representatives. Okay, we can, Suzanne, if you could send Patty back in. Oh, she was watching
She was
TV
listening
out
outside
there.
the door. Thanks, David.
Okay, open discussion. John, do we have open discussion items? Commissioners, does anyone have an open discussion
I
item?
have a really fun open discussion. I would like to see if any of the other board members are interested in doing a tour of the courthouse, especially the attic.
Yes, I'll vote yay on that. Hey.
I've heard it's really, yeah, can we do that?
So.
And I promise not, oh, that's right.
We can
it's
do
my
whatever the
building.
hell we want.
And I promise not to chain myself to anything while we're in the
Oh,
building.
come on.
So
Well,
I
maybe.
just actually talked to Jody Smith before our meeting today out in the hall. She said the attic is not safe right now because there are actually holes cut in it for the work that's going on, and she wouldn't recommend doing a tour of the attic right now.
So much the better for us.
However, she said it would be a good time to do a tour of the remodel because there's getting ready to put up drywall on stuff, and we'd be able to see some different things.
Well, we can certainly either set up multiple opportunities or do it at a time when you can see the attic. But obviously, we want it to be safe for a lot of reasons.
I don't know, I think having us all walk the plank up there would be kind of cool.
I'm willing to send Patty in as a probe.
I'll second that.
I've got my hard hat upstairs, I can go right now. But I would like to do, split it, go to the attic when it's safe and do this other part before they drywall, if that's okay in our building to do that. And I'm going blindfolded up the front stairwell.
I'll second that.
So can we look into that, John? That was
Typing
my
it right now.
only, I think, open discussion.
Okay. Well, thanks for that suggestion, and I think seeing Jody's slides yesterday inspired us to, let's go see in person what's happening there, because there's a lot happening in the courthouse.
I just wanted to bring up something. Somebody asked me this morning, and I didn't have an immediate answer, was that how are we with our investments? Should we be thinking about divesting from investments with the county, employee funds and others that are, oil and gas, fossil fuel related industries? There's a movement that has been going on for quite some time at building momentum to focus attention on where public funds and funds of all sorts are being invested, and with the suggestion that we divest from things that are counter to our principles about climate change, carbon emissions. And I realized I didn't know.
So as far as general county investments, we're not invested in any equities or anything like that. So there's really not, it's all more treasuries and those sorts of things. In terms of retirement plans, we do not have a defined benefit plan where the county is necessarily vesting money. It's a defined contribution plan where it becomes directed by employees. One of the things I'll have to look at is whether there's an option for employees to invest in funds that maybe represent those values, and that might be our best option. And I can't answer that right now.
Oh, great. Well, maybe we could look at that going forward. It'd be nice to be able to tell people we're looking into it and that we're not, since we're not in equities anyway, that might be a start. Thank you.
Rather than us making the decision for the employee whose money, it's really up
Right.
to the employee. If they want to invest in, we have some that might choose to invest in oil and gas. And that's their choice.
I have at least an answer, half of an answer for them.
I
Thank
think
you.
you have a good answer.
That's all I've got.
I have one thing. Do we need to close public hearings? I don't think we closed them.
I closed the public hearing.
Oh, you did? All of them?
Yes.
Yeah, good job.
He's
When I was
good.
out of the
He picked it
room.
up right away.
I heard him.
It took me till
He
November.
waited till I left the room just to see if I could catch him.
Okay, is there any further business for the good of the order? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Not on the table. God.
Do that at least once.